People in town said the field behind Miller Road was empty. Flat grass, a few stones, and a line of trees far away. That was all. But on a warm afternoon, Daniel walked there with his camera and saw something that did not belong. It was a metal elevator door standing by itself in the center of the field. No building, no walls, just a freestanding door with a call button on a thin panel. The wind pushed the grass around it like waves around a rock. The call button had only one symbol, a single arrow pointing down. Daniel stood still and stared. He was 27, a part-time photographer who took pictures for small weddings and school events. He loved simple things he could understand. This was not simple. He took a photo. The screen looked normal. The door was real. He walked closer until he could see his reflection in the dull metal. There was a small sign above the door. The letters were scratched but clear. Service lift property of Public Works. Do not descend. There was no up button anywhere. No open, no close. Just the one call button with the down arrow. Daniel looked around the field to see if someone was hiding and playing a joke. Nothing, only wind, grass, and a faraway crow. He laughed once, short and nervous, and took out his phone. He called his friend, Maya. "You are not going to believe what I'm looking at," he said. "What is it?" "An elevator. In the field, no building. Just the door." "That sounds like a trap," she said. "Leave it alone. I'll just take a look, then I'll go." He started a video recording on his phone, pointed it at the door, and hit the down arrow. A soft bell rang. The metal doors slid open. Warm yellow light spilled out, and he saw an actual elevator car inside. Old, but clean. A brass handrail, a faded carpet, a tiny panel on the right with 3 things. The same down arrow, a metal keyhole, and a red alarm switch. Above the door, where numbers should show floors, there was a blank strip of glass. The air smelled like rain, dust, and old copper. Daniel stepped into the car and looked around. The doors stayed open. He waited, then stepped back out into the field. Nothing changed. He stepped inside again. His heart beat hard in his chest, but his curiosity was stronger. He could always step back out, he told himself. He kept the phone recording and spoke into it. Daniel Carter, Miller Field, 5:30 p.m. "I'm inside the weird elevator now. If this is a prank, it's very good." He held the phone, breathed in, and pressed the down arrow. The doors slid, shut at once. The elevator hummed and began to move. He felt his stomach dip, like in a real building. A thin line of light above the door glowed and showed B1, then B2, then B3. The car kept going. There was still no up button anywhere. He felt the simple fear that comes when you make a choice you cannot undo. He pressed the alarm switch. A sharp ring sounded somewhere far away, then a crackle of static, like an old radio waking up. He pressed it again. No voice answered that the elevator stopped at B4. The bell rang once. The doors opened. A hallway stretched out in front of him. It looked like an office from the 1980s. Yellow walls, square ceiling lights, dark carpet with a pattern of little squares. He heard a faint tick-to-tick. It was the sound of a clock, but it ticked backward. "Hello," he called. His own voice sounded too loud. There were rooms on both sides. Some had doors, some were open. He peeked into one and saw old desks with grey computers. Dust lay on everything. On the wall was a framed photo of the field. He stepped closer. The photo, the field, was empty. There was no elevator. The doors behind him started to close. He jumped back into the car and the doors shut. The elevator hummed and kept going down. "Okay," he said to himself, trying to keep his voice steady. "We're done. We're going back up now." He turned in a small circle inside the car, looking for a hidden button. There was none. Only the down arrow and the keyhole. His mouth went dry. B7 stop. Bell doors open. Now it looked like a subway. Platform made of concrete. A dark tunnel opened on the left. A sign above the platform showed letters from many languages, overlapped, like someone couldn't choose which to use. A train rolled in with no lights in the windows. It hissed too. A stop. The doors on the train opened, but the car looked empty. "Do not," he whispered to himself, "do not go in there." A speaker crackled. A woman's voice spoke a language he didn't know. Then the same voice spoke English, but the words were wrong, like they were being played backward. Imok, Inawad, Odit. Daniel felt a soft breeze on his neck and a warm breath that wasn't his. "Daniel," a voice whispered behind him. He turned so fast he hit his elbow on the doorframe. No one was there. He jumped back into the elevator car and hit the alarm. Again, this time, a voice answered. It sounded like someone speaking through water. "Remain in the car," it said. "Do not exit a floor with mirrors. Do not speak to anyone who knows your name. Do not trust the idea of up." "Hello," Daniel said. "Who is this? How do I go back up?" Static. Then silence. The elevator went down to B9, B10, B11. Each time it stopped, the doors slid open on a new place that felt like a memory that didn't belong to him. A hospital room with a bed and a heart monitor that showed 0 o'clock. A supermarket, all stocked with the same can repeated hundreds of times, each label blank except for a thin black line. A small basement with a chalk line drawn in a circle and children's handprints all around it at B12. The doors opened to a narrow corridor lined with mirrors from floor to ceiling. He did not step out. He looked straight ahead and kept his eyes on the brass handrail. In the corner of his eye, he saw his reflection raise its hand while he did not. He slammed the side of his fist into the close part of the door where a button should have been. The doors closed anyway, as if the elevator had mercy. The car continued to descend. "Do not trust the idea of up," he repeated in a low voice. He thought about those words while the elevator passed B14 and B15. What did that mean? Up was where the field was. Up was where he came from. Up was home. B16, bell, doors open, the field was there. Same grass, same wind, same trees in the distance. But it was night now, and the stars felt wrong. There were too many, they were too sharp, as if they were holes in the sky, and something brighter and colder was behind them, looking through. He stepped out onto the grass. The elevator waited behind him with its doors open, patient like a mouth. He checked his phone. He had one new message from Maya. The timestamp said 7:12 p.m. yesterday. His phone showed no signal. The video recording was still running. He pointed the camera up. The moon had a thin ring around it, like an eye with a pale iris. Don't wander, he told himself. Go back into the car. He turned around. The elevator doors slid shut, and the metal frame sank straight down into the ground without sound. It was so fast and so smooth that his eyes did not believe it at first. There was only grass again, no sign of any machine. "Okay," he breathed. "Okay, okay." He walked toward town. The air smelled like wet earth. When he reached the road, he saw a sign he knew well, but the letters were mirrored like in a photograph. Door Relum, he swallowed, kept walking, and passed houses he knew, except the paint colors were slightly wrong. Like someone had copied his town from memory and got the shades almost right. He reached his apartment building. A light was on in his window. He climbed the stairs and opened the door with his key. It fit. Inside, the furniture was the same, but the photos on the wall were not. In one frame, he saw himself with a scar on his cheek he did not have. In another, he saw Maya, but her hair was longer and she wore a ring he had never seen. He heard footsteps. In the hall, a man walked into the room and stopped. It was Daniel. It was him, older by a year maybe, with that thin scar. The other Daniel looked tired and afraid, and when he saw our Daniel, he exhaled like he had been holding that breath for days. "You didn't stop at the mirrors," the other Daniel said. "You went too far. I need to go back." Daniel said, "How do I go back up?" The other Daniel smiled a sad, small smile. "There is no up," he said. "There's only less down." They stood in silence. The other Daniel walked to the window and pointed at the field. "It will open again," he said. "It always does. But you won't go where you think." Before Daniel could ask more, a bell rang in the distance. Clear, soft. The sound came from the field. He ran. The grass was cold and wet under his shoes. In the center of the field, the elevator had risen again. The doors were open. Warm yellow lights waited inside, kind and cruel at the same time. He stepped in. The doors closed. The elevator went down. The next stop was different. No number. The strip of glass above the door showed a word instead. White. The doors opened on a small room with white tiles and a glass window, like a ticket booth. Behind the window sat an old man in a grey uniform with a black cap. His eyes were pale, like smoke. "Excuse me," Daniel said. "I need to go back to the real field." "To my field." The old man looked at him as if Daniel were a bird that had flown into the wrong sky. He spoke slowly, so that even a child would understand. "It only goes down," he said. "Up is a story people tell themselves when they are afraid. If you want to leave, you must return to the floor that made you." "What floor is that?" Daniel asked. The old man's mouth moved, but his words did not come through the glass. Instead, Daniel heard the same sentence from the speaker. "Do not trust the idea of up." The white room flickered. When the lights blinked back on, the chair in the booth was empty. The doors closed. The elevator sank again. It stopped at a place that looked like his 6th grade classroom. Sunlight fell in from windows that should not exist this deep underground. His name was on the chalkboard in big letters. Daniel Carter, present. A boy who looked like him at age 12 sat in the back row and smiled with too many teeth. Daniel did not step out. The doors closed. It stopped at a hospital hallway with rain on the floor. It stopped at a church with no cross, only a blank wall and rows of empty chairs facing nothing. Each time he stayed in the car and waited. He repeated the old man's words in his head. "Return to the floor that made you." When the doors opened again, he smelled wild grass. He heard a crow. The sky beyond the doors was cloudy, and the wind was cooler, like a storm was close. It looked like his field. It felt like his field. He pressed his hand to the brass rail once, like a promise, and stepped out. The elevator did not sink away this time. It stood with its doors open and hummed softly. He waited, then looked down. His shoes were covered in dust from the elevator, and tiny, pale seeds from the grass stuck to the laces. He listened. Somewhere far away, a car passed on a road. He heard a dog bark. Real sounds. He took out his phone. The time was 5:41 p.m. The date matched the day he left. He laughed once, wet with relief. He started to record again, his voice shaking. "If you find the elevator in Miller Field," he said, "do not go down. If you do not speak to anyone who knows your name. Do not step out where there are mirrors. And if someone tells you not to trust the idea of a blissen." He stopped the recording. He wanted to throw the phone into the grass and run home, but he looked at the elevator one last time. Inside, the panel still had only the down arrow and the keyhole. The keyhole made him think of a question he had not asked. If there is a keyhole, there must be a key. He stepped closer to the doors and peered at the seam where the two panels met. In the reflection, he saw himself. Then, at the edge of the reflection, he saw another figure behind him. It was blurry at first, then clear. It was Maya. She stood in the field, hair blowing in the wind. She was smiling, but her eyes were wrong. They were bright like the sharp stars from the wrong sky. "Daniel," she said softly, "I got your message. Are you okay?" He did not turn around. "What did I say in the message?" he asked. "You said, going down." He kept his eyes on the reflection. Her mouth moved, but the words he heard were slightly delayed. Like a bad video call. "Don't trust the idea of up," she said, and the smile widened too far. Daniel reached into his pocket and squeezed the small metal object he had taken from the white room without noticing. He didn't remember picking it up. It was cold and shaped like a key. His reflection lifted its hand and waved at him. Daniel did not wave. He kept his eyes on the reflection, slid the key into the keyhole, and turned it. The elevator made a quiet sound like a breath in. The down arrow went dark. A new light came on, faint and gentle, above the keyhole. It was a tiny word he had not seen before, stamped into the metal so small that you had to stand very close to read it. Les Mayaf it was. Maya stepped closer in the reflection until she stood just behind him. He could smell her shampoo. The wind stopped. The grass stopped moving. The world held its breath. "Going down," she whispered. Daniel did not answer. He looked at the field, then at the elevator. He thought about the line the old man had given him like a piece of string in a storm. "Return to the floor that made you." He stepped backward into the car without taking his eyes off the reflection. The doors slid shut between him and the field. The car began to sink. The panel showed nothing now. Not numbers, not words. Just the faint glow of that tiny stamp, lest it did not feel like down anymore. It felt like peeling away layers of paint until you hit bare wood. The elevator moved. Through offices that never were, trains that never came, mirrors that never reflected the right thing. The hum became a heartbeat, his heartbeat. The bell rang one last time. The doors opened, grass, wind, a line of trees, the smell of rain, the faint sound of a dog in the distance. The sky, the right kind of grey, the moon not yet risen. No one in the field but him. His phone buzzed. A text from Maya. "Where are you? Don't go anywhere weird without me." Timestamp 5:42 p.m. He laughed again, the kind of laugh that shakes your shoulders and then turns into a sob. He stepped out. The doors stayed open. The elevator waited for an answer it did not ask. Daniel walked backward, 1 step, 2 steps. 3. The wind picked up. The crow called. He turned and ran until the field was behind him, and the road was under his feet, and the town smelled like food and rain and gasoline. He did not look back until he was halfway home. From far away, in the middle of the field, he saw a small shape of metal. It stood alone and quiet. For a second, just a second, he thought he saw someone else standing in front of it. A woman with her hair blowing in the wind. The bell rang, soft and kind. He looked away and kept walking. If you go to Miller Field and you see the elevator, you will want to press the button. You will tell yourself you'll only look. You will tell yourself you'll only go one floor. Your fingers will itch to touch the metal. Your heart will say you are not afraid. Listen. To me, the elevator only goes down, and down does not mean what you think it means.